My father signed my death warrant with a golden pen. Not metaphorically. Literally. The pen was 24-karat gold, encrusted with diamonds along the barrel, a gift from the Sultan of Brunei. The paper was imported from Italy, so thick and cream-colored it felt like fabric between your fingers. And at the top, embossed in gold ink, were the words, "Royal Decree of the House of Saud." He didn't look at me when he signed it. He just dipped that pen into ink made from crushed sapphires, yes, we had ink made from gemstones, and wrote his signature in perfect, flowing Arabic calligraphy. The sound of the pen scratching across that paper is burned into my brain. It's the sound of your father choosing your death over your freedom. Even my execution was luxury. The entire royal council sat around that table, my uncles, my older brother Faisal, the Grand Mufti, the Minister of the Interior. All men. All wearing crisp white thobes and red checkered gutras held in place with black agals woven with gold thread. The room smelled of oud and Turkish coffee. Expensive. Suffocating. The chandelier above us, imported from Austria, $3.2 million, 15,000 crystals, cast fractured light across their faces. They looked like judges. Like executioners dressed in silk. My father finally looked up. His eyes were black, empty. "Amira," he said softly. His voice never rose above a whisper. "Kings don't need to shout. You have brought shame upon the crown. You have betrayed your family, your faith, and your kingdom. The sentence is death. Unless," he paused, let the word hang in the air like a noose. "Unless you renounce this Jesus." He said the name like it was poison. I should tell you how I got there. I should rewind. Because no one wakes up one day and decides to die for a God they were taught to hate. No one walks into a throne room and chooses a death sentence over a palace. But I did. And if you're watching this, if you're a Muslim, if you're royal, if you're trapped in a golden cage like I was, you need to hear how I got there. Because it might save your life. Or it might end it. Either way, you'll finally be free. Let me take you back to the palace where this nightmare began. The royal palace of Riyadh. Maybe you've seen pictures, those glossy magazines that show desert kingdoms dripping in oil money and excess. But pictures don't capture it. They don't show you what it feels like to live in a building with 420 rooms, where the hallways are so long you need golf carts to get from one wing to another. They don't show you the weight of Italian marble under your feet, so polished you can see your own reflection staring back at you, a ghost in designer abayas. My bedroom alone was 2,000 square feet. Bigger than most people's homes. The bed was custom-made in France, silk sheets, posts carved from Lebanese cedar, a canopy stitched with real pearls. My walk-in closet held 47 abayas, each one worth between $15,000 and $80,000. Gucci. Dior. Valentino. Custom embroidery. Some had Swarovski crystals sewn into the hems, thousands of them, so when I walked, I shimmered like a night sky. I had a bathroom with a tub carved from a single block of white marble. Gold fixtures. A mirror framed in mother of pearl. Perfumes lined the counter, Tom Ford, Creed, rare oud oils from Oman that cost $2,000 per ounce. I smelled like money. I looked like a dream. And I was dying inside. You don't understand what I mean yet. No one does. People see royalty and think, she had everything. What could she possibly complain about? And you're right. I had everything. I had more than everything. I ate meals prepared by chefs trained in Paris, gold leaf on desserts, saffron rice, lamb so tender it melted on your tongue. I had servants for everything. A maid to draw my bath. A maid to pick my clothes. A maid to braid my hair. I didn't even fold my own towels. But here's the truth no one tells you: money is the most beautiful prison ever built. I lived in a palace with 420 rooms, and I was more trapped than any prisoner in any cell. I had 47 abayas worth a combined total of $2.1 million, and I couldn't choose what to do with my own life. I had a bed stitched with pearls, and I cried myself to sleep every single night. Because none of it was mine. Not really. It all belonged to the crown. And the crown owned me, too. My father, His Royal Highness, King Abdulaziz ibn Saud, wasn't just my father. He was the absolute ruler of one of the wealthiest nations on earth. His word was law. Literally. If he said you were guilty, you were guilty. If he said you were dead, you were dead. There were no appeals. No courts. Just his signature on royal decrees. And I was his daughter. Princess Amira bint Abdulaziz Al Saud. Third child. Only daughter. The one he kept hidden from the world, locked away in the women's quarters of the palace like a jewel in a vault, beautiful, expensive, untouchable, and absolutely powerless. I want you to understand something: being royal doesn't make you free. Sometimes, it makes you the most expensive slave. I had no privacy. None. My phone was monitored. My internet was filtered. My movements were tracked by royal guards, silent men with dead eyes and loaded guns who flanked me everywhere I went. Even inside the palace. Especially inside the palace. Because in royal families, the biggest threats come from within. Coups. Poisonings. Scandals. Everyone is watching everyone. Trust is a currency we couldn't afford. I couldn't leave the palace without permission. I couldn't speak to men outside my immediate family. I couldn't drive, not that women were allowed to drive in Saudi Arabia back then anyway. I couldn't choose my friends. I couldn't choose my clothes, my schedule, my education, my life. Everything was decided for me. I was 24 years old. And I had never made a single decision that mattered. My days were the same. Every single day. Wake up at dawn to the call to prayer echoing through the palace from our private mosque, a building with a gold dome, walls covered in Quranic calligraphy inlaid with lapis lazuli. I'd perform wudu in that marble bathroom, wrap myself in my abaya, and go pray with my mother and the other royal women. 5 times a day. Every day. Since I was 6 years old. I prayed in Arabic. I recited words I'd memorized but never felt. I bowed toward Mecca. I touched my forehead to carpets worth $400,000, handwoven in Iran, dyed with saffron and indigo. I performed every ritual perfectly. And I felt nothing. Allah felt further away than the moon. I was praying in the most beautiful mosque in the kingdom, surrounded by gold and precious stones, reciting the Quran in perfect tajweed, and I felt like I was shouting into a void. But I didn't tell anyone. You don't question Islam when you're Saudi royalty. You don't doubt. Doubt is haram. Doubt is treason. So I kept my mouth shut, kept my head down, and kept pretending. Until the night everything shattered. It was a Thursday. I remember because Thursdays were when my father held royal majlis, formal gatherings where diplomats, tribal leaders, and businessmen came to kiss his ring and ask for favors. The palace was full of guests. I wasn't allowed to attend, of course. Women didn't participate in majlis. We stayed in the harem, the women's quarters, like expensive furniture. I was in my room, staring out the window at the Riyadh skyline. Glittering. Modern. Soulless. My reflection stared back at me from the glass, a girl drowning in silk, suffocating in gold. And that's when I saw it. Tucked into the drawer of my nightstand, underneath my Quran, underneath my prayer beads, hidden like contraband, was a book I'd never seen before. Small. Black. Worn leather cover. I pulled it out with shaking hands. And in gold letters across the front, it said, Holy Bible. My heart stopped. My hands went ice cold. I looked around my room like someone was watching, because someone was always watching. Cameras in the hallways. Servants who reported everything. Guards outside my door. If anyone found this. But I couldn't stop myself. I opened it. The pages were thin, delicate, covered in English and Arabic side by side. And tucked inside the front cover was a handwritten note on palace stationery. It said, if you're searching for truth, start with the Book of John. He is closer than you think. S. I didn't know who S was. I didn't know how this book got into my room. But I knew one thing. This was the forbidden thing I'd been craving my entire life. And the night I found that book, everything changed. My father wasn't always a monster. I need you to understand that. Because the worst villains aren't the ones who are evil from birth. They're the ones who love you, who held you as a baby, who taught you to ride horses in the palace courtyards, who called you Habibti, my beloved, and meant it. Those are the villains who destroy you. Because when they turn on you, they don't just take your life. They take every good memory you ever had. King Abdulaziz ibn Saud was a man who never raised his voice. He didn't need to. When he entered a room, the air itself changed. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Grown men, princes, generals, billionaires, stood up straighter, avoided eye contact, waited for permission to breathe. He moved slowly, deliberately, like a lion who knew he was apex. He wore the finest thobes, white linen so crisp it looked like paper, bisht robes embroidered with gold thread that cost $50,000 each. His gutra was always perfectly folded. His beard was always trimmed. His hands were soft, he'd never worked a day in his life, but his grip could crush bone. He kept a gold dagger on his desk. Not for show. For memory. I'd seen it my entire life, sitting there on his massive mahogany desk in his private office, next to a Quran bound in crocodile leather and a phone that had a direct line to the White House. The dagger's handle was encrusted with rubies. The blade was curved, polished to a mirror shine. And along the edge, in microscopic Arabic script, were the names of men he'd executed. Family members. Cousins who tried to stage coups. Uncles who embezzled from the royal treasury. A half-brother who spoke to foreign journalists without permission. My father didn't believe in exile. He believed in finality. This blade has tasted the blood of traitors, he told me once when I was 12, during one of the rare moments he summoned me to his office. I'd knocked over a vase in the hallway, a Ming Dynasty vase worth $1.2 million, and a servant reported it. He sat me down in the chair across from his desk, poured me tea from a gold pot, and slid the dagger toward me. Family traitors, he continued, his voice soft, almost gentle. Do you know what makes a traitor, Habibti? I shook my head. My hands were trembling so hard the teacup rattled against the saucer. He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Disobedience. I never forgot that moment. I never forgot that smile. And I never forgot the way he touched that dagger like it was a pet. For 24 years, I obeyed. I was the perfect daughter. The perfect princess. I prayed 5 times a day. I memorized the Quran. I wore my abaya and my hijab without complaint. I smiled at state functions when foreign dignitaries visited and I was paraded out like a doll, proof that the kingdom was modernizing, that royal women were educated. I studied literature and art history with private tutors in the palace. I spoke 4 languages, Arabic, English, French, Urdu. I played piano. I painted watercolors in the palace gardens. I was everything he wanted me to be. But I was also suffocating. Because no matter how perfect I was, I knew the truth. I wasn't a daughter. I was an asset. A bargaining chip. A piece on a chessboard my father moved whenever it benefited the crown. And on March 14, 2023, 3 months after I found that Bible, he finally made his move. It was a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were when my mother hosted her weekly gathering in the harem, a formal tea for the wives of ministers and tribal leaders, a performance of royal grace and feminine piety. I hated those gatherings. Hours of sitting on velvet cushions, sipping mint tea from gold-rimmed china, listening to women gossip in Arabic and Farsi while pretending their lives weren't as hollow as mine. But that Tuesday, my mother canceled the gathering. No explanation. Just a terse message from her personal servant, Her Royal Highness requires privacy today. That should have been my first warning. The second warning came at 6 p.m., when my father's chief of staff, a thin, cold man named Minister Alotabi, appeared at my door flanked by 2 royal guards. He didn't knock. He just opened the door like he owned it. Because he did. My father owned everything. Princess Amira, he said, his voice clipped, formal. His Majesty requests your presence in the throne room. Immediately. My stomach dropped. The throne room. Not his office. Not the family majlis. The throne room, the massive, gilded hall where my father held court, where he issued royal decrees, where he passed judgment. Where he sentenced people. Why? I asked. My voice came out smaller than I wanted. Minister Alotabi's expression didn't change. His Majesty does not provide reasons. He provides commands. The guards stepped into my room. I had no choice. The walk to the throne room was 200 meters. I counted every step. 154 steps. Each one heavier. Each one slower. The guards flanked me, silent, armed, their boots echoing on the marble like drumbeats. We passed the portrait gallery, my ancestors staring down from ornate frames, kings and princes and warriors who'd built this kingdom on blood and oil. They all looked the same. Dead eyes. Expensive robes. Power that crushed everything in its path. I wondered if I'd end up on this wall someday. Princess Amira bint Abdulaziz Al Saud. 1999 to 2023. Died for disobedience. The doors to the throne room were 20 feet tall, solid teak inlaid with mother-of-pearl and gold. 2 guards pulled them open. The sound echoed like thunder. Inside, the room was enormous. Vaulted ceilings. Columns wrapped in gold leaf. Persian rugs covering acres of marble. And at the far end, elevated on a platform, was my father's throne, a monstrosity of carved mahogany and red velvet, flanked by the Saudi flag and the royal coat of arms. My father sat on that throne. Waiting. Around him stood the royal council, 10 men in white thobes, their faces grim. My brother Faisal was there, arms crossed, jaw tight. My uncle, the Minister of Defense. The Grand Mufti, his beard long and gray, his eyes cold. And next to my father, standing like a vulture, was Prince Rashid ibn Khalid Al Saud. 72 years old. Widowed 3 times. A distant cousin. A man with dead eyes and hands that shook from age. And in that moment, I knew. I knew exactly why I was there. Amira. My father's voice cut through the silence. He didn't stand. Kings don't stand for their daughters. Come forward. I walked toward the throne. My legs felt like water. My abaya dragged across the rug, black silk, Valentino, $18,000. It suddenly felt like a funeral shroud. I stopped 10 feet from the platform. I didn't bow. I should have. But I couldn't make my body move. My father leaned forward, his hands steepled under his chin. You are 24 years old, he said. Unmarried. An embarrassment to this family. The words hit like slaps. I have been patient, he continued, his voice still soft, still controlled. I allowed you an education. I allowed you freedoms other princesses do not enjoy. But patience has limits. He gestured to Prince Rashid. Prince Rashid has made a generous offer for your hand. The marriage will strengthen our alliance with his branch of the family. The wedding will take place in 6 weeks. The room spun. My vision blurred at the edges. You will accept, my father said. It wasn't a question. It was a decree. You will be grateful. You will honor your family and your faith. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. Prince Rashid smiled. His teeth were yellow. He looked at me the way you look at a car you're about to buy, appraising, calculating, already imagining ownership. Baba, I finally choked out. Please. I can't. You will. My father's voice dropped to that whisper. That terrible, terrifying whisper. Or you will be stripped of your title, your inheritance, and your name. You will be nothing. My brother Faisal looked away. My uncle stared at the floor. The Grand Mufti nodded approvingly. No one was going to save me. I felt something crack inside my chest. Not my heart. My heart had been breaking for years. This was something deeper. This was my will. The last part of me that believed I had any control over my life. "Is there anything you wish to say?" my father asked. I looked at him, this man who'd taught me to ride horses, who'd called me Habibti, who'd smiled at me as a child. This man who was now selling me like cattle. And I said the only thing I had left. "No, Your Majesty." My father nodded. "Good. You are dismissed." I don't remember walking back to my room. I don't remember the hallways or the guards or the 154 steps in reverse. I only remember collapsing on my bed, that silk-sheeted, pearl-stitched, $200,000 bed, and feeling my entire body shut down. My knees gave out. The room spun. I couldn't breathe. I was going to be married to a man older than my father. A man I didn't know. A man I didn't love. And I had no say. No choice. No escape. I pressed my face into the pillow, Egyptian cotton, 1,200 thread count, and screamed. No sound came out. Just air. Just emptiness. And that's when I heard it. A whisper. Not audible. Not outside me. Inside me. Call to me. I froze. Call to me, and I will answer. I lifted my head. My room was empty. The door was locked. The windows were closed. But that voice, it was real. It was more real than anything I'd ever heard. And I knew, somehow, impossibly, it was him. The one I'd been reading about in secret for 3 months. The one whose words had unraveled everything I thought I knew. The one whose name alone made my father's dagger look like a toy. Jesus. That was the night I learned what powerless really meant. And the night I discovered that powerless is exactly where his power begins. For the next 2 weeks, I did everything right. I prayed to Allah 5 times a day, Far at dawn, Dur at noon, Asr in the afternoon, Maghrib at sunset, Isha at night. I performed wudu perfectly, washing my hands, my face, my arms, my feet in the prescribed order. I wrapped my hijab so tight it gave me headaches. I recited Surah Al-Fatiha until my tongue went numb. I prostrated myself on those $400,000 Persian rugs in our palace mosque until my forehead had a permanent red mark. I begged Allah to save me. I begged him to change my father's mind. To make Prince Rashid withdraw his offer. To give me a way out that didn't end with me dead or disowned or married to a man who smelled like death and expensive cologne. I prayed with everything I had. I prayed until my knees ached and my voice cracked and tears soaked through my prayer mat. I made dua, desperate, whispered supplications, in the middle of the night when the palace was silent and the guards outside my door couldn't hear me breaking. Allah, please. Please. I've been obedient my entire life. I've never questioned. I've never disobeyed. Please don't let this happen. Please. And I heard nothing. Not a whisper. Not a sign. Not even the faintest sense that anyone was listening. Just silence. Cold. Empty. Absolute. It was like shouting into a well and hearing nothing but your own echo. The palace mosque was one of the most beautiful buildings I'd ever seen. My father had commissioned it when I was 10, a private house of worship for the royal family, built with materials imported from across the Islamic world. The dome was covered in real gold leaf, 24 karat, gleaming in the desert sun like a piece of heaven dropped into Riyadh. The walls were covered in Quranic calligraphy, hand-carved by master artisans from Damascus, inlaid with lapis lazuli from Afghanistan and turquoise from Iran. Every verse was perfect. Every letter was art. The mihrab, the prayer niche indicating the direction of Mecca, was carved from white marble and framed with geometric patterns in mother-of-pearl. The minbar, the pulpit where the imam delivered sermons, was made of Lebanese cedar and covered in gold filigree. The carpets were handwoven in Persia, dyed with saffron and indigo, so intricate you could spend hours tracing the patterns with your eyes. It smelled of incense and oud and old books. It was cool and quiet, insulated from the noise of the palace. Soft light filtered through stained glass windows imported from Turkey, casting jewel-toned shadows across the floor, emerald, sapphire, ruby. It was supposed to be holy. It was supposed to be a place where you felt close to God. I felt nothing. I remember one afternoon, 8 days before the wedding, I was alone in the mosque. My mother had gone to rest. The other royal women were in their chambers. Even the guards stayed outside. It was just me and Allah. Except it wasn't. It was just me. I sat on that saffron-dyed carpet, my back against the cool marble wall, my Quran open in my lap. I'd been reading Surah Maryam, the chapter about Mary, the mother of Jesus. It was one of the few places in the Quran that spoke of Isa, Jesus, with any detail. I read the verses over and over, searching for something, anything that would give me hope. And mention in the book, Mary, when she withdrew from her family to a place toward the east. And she took, in seclusion from them, a screen. Then we sent to her our angel, and he represented himself to her as a well-proportioned man. I stopped. Read it again. Mary had been alone. Desperate. Probably terrified. And Allah had sent her an angel. A messenger. An answer. I closed the Quran. I pressed it against my chest. And I whispered, Allah, if you sent Mary an angel when she was afraid, please. Please send me one. I'm so afraid. I don't know what to do. Please. I waited. 1 minute. 5 minutes. 10. The only sound was the air conditioning humming through the vents. Even our mosque had central air, because Saudi summers are unbearable. Outside, I could hear the distant call of a car horn, the murmur of servants moving through the palace halls, the faint echo of my brother's voice shouting orders to someone. But from heaven? Nothing. I opened my eyes. The mosque looked exactly the same. The gold dome. The lapis lazuli. The Turkish stained glass. Millions of dollars in materials, centuries of Islamic tradition, the most beautiful prayer space in the kingdom. And Allah felt further away than the moon. That night, I broke. I was in my room, that 2,000 square foot prison with silk curtains and a $200,000 bed. I'd dismissed my servants early. I'd locked the door. I'd checked for cameras. And I'd pulled that forbidden Bible out from under my mattress where I'd been hiding it for 3 months. I hadn't touched it since the night my father announced my engagement. I'd been too terrified. Too guilty. Too desperate to prove I was still a good Muslim, still obedient, still worthy of Allah's mercy. But Allah wasn't showing mercy. So I opened the Bible. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I turned to the book of John, the place the anonymous note had told me to start. And I read by the light of my phone, sitting cross-legged on that obscenely expensive bed, feeling like a criminal. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. I stopped. Read it again. The Word was God. Not a prophet. Not a messenger. God. I kept reading. Verse after verse. Chapter after chapter. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would crack my ribs. Because every word I read was shattering the foundation I'd built my entire life on. Jesus wasn't just a prophet. He was God in flesh. He didn't just deliver a message. He was the message. He didn't just point to heaven. He came from heaven. And he didn't come to give us more rules, more rituals, more ways to earn salvation. He came to be our salvation. I read John 3 verse 16. I'd heard it before, whispered by the Filipino housemaids who were secret Christians, referenced in smuggled movies, quoted in banned books. But I'd never read it myself. Not like this. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. I stopped breathing. Whoever believes in him. Not whoever prays 5 times a day. Not whoever fasts during Ramadan. Not whoever makes Hajj to Mecca or memorizes the Quran or wears the hijab or follows Sharia. Whoever believes. That's it. That's all. And suddenly, every prayer I'd ever prayed to Allah felt like ashes in my mouth. Because I'd spent my entire life performing, earning, striving, trying to be good enough, pure enough, obedient enough to deserve paradise. And this Jesus, this God-man I'd been taught to reject, was saying, you don't have to earn it. I already paid for it. Just believe. I turned to another passage. Ephesians 2 verses 8 to 9. I don't know how I found it. I didn't know the Bible's structure yet. But it was like something was guiding my hands. For it is by grace you have been saved, through faith, and this is not from yourselves, it is the gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast. I read it 3 times. Not by works. My entire life was works. My entire religion was works. Islam is beautiful in many ways. I'm not here to mock it, but it is a religion of doing. 5 pillars. 5 prayers. Fasting. Charity. Pilgrimage. Obedience. Submission. You do these things, and maybe Allah will grant you Jannah. Paradise. But there's no guarantee. Even Muhammad himself wasn't sure if he'd make it to paradise. I'd read the hadith. I knew. And here was Jesus, saying, it's a gift. You can't earn it. You can't buy it. You just receive it. I closed the Bible. I pressed it against my chest, the same way I'd pressed my Quran hours earlier in the mosque. But this time, something was different. This time, I felt something move inside me. Not physically. Spiritually. Like a door I didn't know existed had just cracked open, and light was pouring through. But I was terrified. Because if Jesus was telling the truth, if he really was God, if salvation really was a free gift, if everything I'd been taught my entire life was wrong, then what did that make me? A traitor. An apostate. A murtad. In Islam, apostasy is the worst sin. Worse than murder. Worse than adultery. Worse than anything. The punishment is death. Not metaphorical death. Actual death. Beheading. Public execution. And if you're royal, it's even worse. Because your apostasy doesn't just shame you. It shames the crown. It shames the entire kingdom. It becomes a political crisis. I thought about my father's dagger. The names carved into the blade. I thought about Prince Rashid's yellow smile. I thought about my mother's cold eyes, the way she looked at me now, like I was a problem to be solved, a transaction to be completed. I thought about my brother Faisal, who used to sneak me extra desserts when I was little, who used to make me laugh, who now avoided eye contact. I thought about the palace, the 420 rooms, the Italian marble, the gold fixtures, the $400,000 carpets. I thought about the fleet of Rolls-Royces in the garage, the private jet with my family crest on the tail, the Swiss bank accounts with my name on them. I thought about the life I'd lose. And then I thought about the life I'd never had. I was surrounded by 200 people in that palace. Servants. Guards. Family. Ministers. Imams. People everywhere, all the time, watching, reporting, controlling. And I had never been more alone. I had everything. And I had never felt more empty. I lived in the wealthiest kingdom on earth. And my soul was bankrupt. I knelt on that Persian rug in my room, the one next to my bed, the one worth $250,000, handwoven by artisans in Isfahan, dyed with natural pigments, every knot tied by hand. I knelt on that masterpiece of human craftsmanship, in a room filled with luxury most people couldn't imagine, in a palace that symbolized ultimate power and wealth. And I felt like the poorest person alive. Jesus, I whispered. I'd never said his name out loud before. Not like that. Not as a prayer. It felt dangerous. Forbidden. Thrilling. Jesus, I said again, louder. If you're real, if any of this is real, I need you. I need you now. I can't do this anymore. I can't marry that man. I can't keep pretending. I can't keep praying to a God who doesn't answer. Please. Please. My voice cracked. Tears poured down my face, soaking into my abaya, dripping onto that $250,000 rug. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know how this works. I don't even know if you're listening. But if you are, if you're really there, I need you to show me. Because I'm drowning. And I can't save myself. The room was silent. The air conditioning hummed. Outside my window, Riyadh glittered, a city built on oil money and broken backs, modern and medieval at once, wealthy and empty. I waited. And this time, something changed. The Bible appeared in my room the way secrets always appear in palaces, silently, mysteriously, and at exactly the moment you need them most. I told you I found it 3 months before my father announced my engagement. Let me tell you the whole story. Because it wasn't random. Nothing in the palace was random. Everything was watched. Everything was controlled. And the fact that this book made it past the guards, past the servants, past the security systems that monitored every corner of our lives, that alone should have told me something supernatural was already happening. It was December 2022. Winter in Riyadh, the only time of year when the desert is bearable, when you can walk in the palace gardens without feeling like you're being baked alive. I'd spent the afternoon in the library, a room my father had built to impress foreign dignitaries. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. First editions. Rare manuscripts. Leather-bound collections of Arabic poetry and Islamic philosophy. Most of them had never been opened. They were decorations. Symbols of culture that no one in our family actually cared about. But I loved that library. It was one of the few places in the palace where I could be alone, truly alone, without anyone questioning why. Princess Amira is reading, the servants would say. Leave her be. Reading was acceptable. Reading was refined. Reading was a hobby for educated royal women who had nothing else to do. I was curled up in a velvet chair near the window, reading a collection of Rumi's poetry, also acceptable, since Rumi was a Sufi mystic, Islamic enough to pass inspection, when Aisha walked in. Aisha was my personal maid. Pakistani. 43 years old. She'd been with our family for 15 years, brought over on a domestic worker visa like thousands of other South Asian women who staff the palaces of the Gulf. She was small, thin, always moving quietly, always watching. Her eyes were dark and sad, the kind of sad that comes from seeing too much and saying too little. I liked her. Or maybe I just pitied her. It's hard to tell the difference when you grow up surrounded by servants. You're taught not to get attached. They're not your friends. They're employees. Replaceable. Invisible. But Aisha was different. She'd been there when I was 9 and fell off a horse in the palace stables, breaking my arm. She'd held me while I cried, whispering Urdu lullabies I didn't understand. She'd been there when I was 14 and got my first period, terrified and ashamed, and she'd explained everything my mother was too royal to discuss. She'd been there for every birthday, every holiday, every lonely night when I was too sad to sleep. She'd seen me. Really seen me. And in a palace where everyone looked through you or past you or at your title instead of your face, that mattered. Princess, Aisha said softly, standing in the doorway. She never entered a room without permission. Servants who forgot their place disappeared. I've come to turn down your bed. It was 8 p.m. Early for turn-down service, but I didn't question it. Of course, Aisha. Thank you. She nodded and left. I went back to my book. An hour later, I returned to my room. The bed had been turned down, silk sheets folded back, pillows fluffed, a bottle of French mineral water on the nightstand. Everything perfect. Everything in its place. Except for one thing. When I opened my nightstand drawer to put away my phone, I saw it. Tucked beneath my Quran, beneath my prayer beads, beneath the lavender sachet that made my room smell like Provence, a small black book. I pulled it out with trembling hands. Holy Bible. Gold letters embossed on worn leather. English and Arabic bilingual edition. The cover was soft, creased, clearly used. This wasn't a showpiece. This was someone's actual Bible. Someone who'd read it so many times the spine was cracked and the pages were dog-eared. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I looked around my room, luxurious, enormous, empty. The door was closed. The windows were shut. The cameras in the hallway couldn't see inside. But I still felt like I was being watched. I opened the front cover. There, on the title page, written in elegant cursive on palace stationery, the kind with our family crest watermarked into the paper, was a note. Princess Amira. If you're searching for truth, start with the Book of John. He is closer than you think. You are not alone. S. I read the note 5 times. My hands were shaking so badly I almost tore the paper. Who was S? Aisha's last name was Sadiq, did that count? But Aisha couldn't write in English this well. Could she? And how would she have access to palace stationery? That paper was kept under lock and key, used only for official royal correspondence. Unless someone else had written it and asked her to deliver it. Unless there was a network of people in this palace, servants, maybe even family members, who were secretly Christians. Hidden believers. Pretending. Surviving. The thought was terrifying and thrilling at the same time. I should have burned it. I should have called security. I should have reported Aisha immediately. Possessing a Bible in Saudi Arabia was illegal, not officially, because the kingdom had to maintain diplomatic relationships with Christian nations, but practically. Get caught with one in public? Deportation if you were foreign. Prison if you were Saudi. And if you were royal? Scandal. Shame. Punishment. But I didn't burn it. I hid it. Deep in the back of my closet, inside a shoebox that held a pair of Louboutin heels I never wore. And every night for the next week, I told myself I wouldn't look at it. And every night, I failed. The first time I actually read it, I waited until 2 a.m. The palace was silent. The servants had gone to their quarters. The guards were stationed in the hallways, but they couldn't see through my door. I'd locked it from the inside, one of the few privileges I had, the illusion of privacy. I pulled the Bible out of the shoebox. I sat on my bed, cross-legged, surrounded by silk pillows embroidered with gold thread. I turned on the lamp, a Venetian glass lamp that cost $8,000, soft light, warm, and I opened to the Book of John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. I stopped. My brain couldn't process it. I'd been taught that Jesus was Isa, a prophet. A good man. A messenger of God, yes, but still just a man. The Quran said so. They say, Allah has taken a son. Exalted is He. He has no need. Surah Al-Baqarah 2:116. But this book, this Bible, was saying something completely different. It was saying Jesus was God. Not a representative of God. Not a prophet sent by God. God Himself, wrapped in human flesh. I read further. Chapter 1, verse 14. The Word became flesh and made His dwelling among us. We have seen His glory, the glory of the one and only Son, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. Full of grace and truth. I'd spent 24 years chasing truth. Reading everything I could get my hands on, poetry, philosophy, history. Asking questions I wasn't supposed to ask. wondering why, if Islam was the final and perfect revelation, so many of its answers felt incomplete. Why Allah felt so distant. Why paradise felt so conditional. Why I always felt like I was one mistake away from hell. And here was Jesus, described as full of truth. Not partial truth. Not hidden truth. Full truth. My hands were shaking. I kept reading. John 3 verse 16. The verse I'd heard whispered by Christians. The verse that was banned, mocked, dismissed as corrupted. I read it in Arabic first, then in English. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. I stopped breathing. God so loved the world. Not God so tolerated the world. Not God so judged the world. Loved the world. Loved it enough to give his Son. To sacrifice. To pay a price. In Islam, I'd been taught that Allah was merciful, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, the most merciful, the most compassionate. But mercy in Islam always felt conditional. Transactional. You do good, Allah might forgive you. You obey, Allah might grant you paradise. You sin, you pay. The scales must balance. But this was different. This was a God who loved so recklessly, so extravagantly, that he sent his own Son to die. Not because we deserved it. Not because we earned it. But because he loved us. I felt something crack open inside my chest. Not breaking. Opening. Like a door I didn't know was sealed had just been unlocked. Every night for 3 months, I read that Bible in secret. I became an expert at hiding. I'd dismiss my servants early, claiming headaches or exhaustion. I'd lock my door. I'd check the hallway through the peephole to make sure no guards were nearby. I'd pull the Bible from its hiding place, I'd moved it 6 times, paranoid that someone would find it, and I'd read by the light of my phone, or the lamp, or sometimes just by moonlight streaming through the window. I read the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. I read about Jesus healing the sick, feeding the hungry, touching lepers, defending prostitutes, challenging religious leaders, welcoming children. I read about his miracles, turning water into wine, walking on water, raising the dead. But it wasn't the miracles that wrecked me. It was his words. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Matthew 11 verse 28. I was so tired. Tired of pretending. Tired of performing. Tired of carrying the weight of royal expectations and religious obligations and a family that saw me as property. I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. John 14 verse 6. Not one of many ways. Not a good suggestion. The way. The only way. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. Luke 19 verse 10. I was lost. I'd been lost my entire life, wandering through a palace maze with no exit, surrounded by wealth and suffocating in emptiness. And Jesus came to find people like me. I started comparing. I couldn't help it. I'd pull out my Quran and read a surah, then open the Bible and read a chapter. Side by side. Word for word. The Quran spoke of Allah's power, his judgment, his authority. It commanded submission. Islam literally means submission. It outlined rules: how to pray, how to dress, how to eat, how to wash, how to live. It promised paradise for the obedient and hell for the disobedient. It was a legal document. A contract. The Bible spoke of God's love, His grace, His pursuit of humanity. It told stories, messy, complicated, human stories, of people who failed and were redeemed, people who doubted and were met with patience, people who ran away and were chased down by a God who refused to let them go. It wasn't a contract. It was a love letter. And I realized something that made my entire world tilt on its axis. I'd spent my whole life trying to reach God. But Jesus said God had already reached me. There was one passage I kept coming back to. I'd marked it with a torn piece of paper. I didn't dare write in the Bible itself. Ephesians 2 verses 1 to 5. As for you, you were dead in your transgressions and sins. But because of His great love for us, God, who is rich in mercy, made us alive with Christ even when we were dead in transgressions. It is by grace you have been saved. Dead in transgressions. That's what I was. I was alive physically, breathing, walking, eating gold-flecked desserts and sleeping in silk sheets. But spiritually? I was dead. I'd been dead for 24 years, going through the motions, performing rituals, reciting prayers I didn't feel. Made us alive with Christ. Not made us alive through our own efforts. Not made us alive by earning it. Made us alive with Christ. Because of Him. Through Him. By grace. That word, grace, it didn't exist in my Islamic vocabulary. There was no Arabic equivalent. The closest was Rahmah, mercy, but even that was conditional. Grace was something else entirely. Grace was undeserved favor. Grace was a gift you couldn't earn, couldn't buy, couldn't perform your way into. Grace was everything I'd never had. And everything I desperately needed. One night, 6 weeks before my father announced my engagement, 2 months before I'd be sitting in that throne room hearing my death sentence, I was reading the Bible when I heard a knock on my door. I shoved the Bible under my pillow so fast I nearly ripped the pages. My heart was in my throat. Yes. I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. "Princess," came Aisha's voice, muffled through the door. "I've brought your tea." I hadn't asked for tea. It was midnight. But I unlocked the door. Aisha entered, carrying a silver tray with a gold-rimmed teacup and a pot of Moroccan mint tea, my favorite. She set it on the table near my bed, her movements quick, efficient. Then she did something she'd never done before. She looked me directly in the eyes. "Is it helping?" she whispered. I froze. "Is what helping?" "The book," she said. Her voice was barely audible. "Is it helping you find what you're looking for?" My throat closed. I couldn't speak. Aisha glanced at the door, then back at me. "You are not alone, princess. Even here. Especially here." She touched her chest, right over her heart. "He is close. Closer than your jugular vein, that's what the Quran says about Allah, yes? But Jesus? He's even closer. He's inside you, if you let Him in." Tears burned my eyes. "I must go," Aisha said quickly. "But remember, when you're ready to call His name, he will answer. That's his promise. John 6 verse 37. Whoever comes to me, I will never cast away. Never, princess. Not even you. She turned and left before I could respond. I sat on my bed, staring at the door, the teacup steaming on the tray, untouched. And I pulled the Bible back out from under my pillow. John 6 verse 37. All those the Father gives me will come to me, and whoever comes to me I will never drive away. Never drive away. Not might accept you if you're good enough. Not will consider you if you obey enough. Never drive away. I pressed the Bible against my chest, closed my eyes, and whispered the most dangerous prayer I'd ever prayed. Jesus, I'm coming. Please don't cast me away. And in the silence of that golden prison, surrounded by wealth and suffocating in emptiness, I felt him smile. It happened on the 15th night after my father announced my engagement. 15 nights of crying myself to sleep. 15 nights of pretending during the day, smiling at wedding planners, nodding at fabric samples for my wedding abaya, sitting through meetings with Prince Rashid's representatives while they discussed dowry and living arrangements like I was a piece of real estate. 15 nights of reading that Bible in secret, devouring it like a starving person, underlining passages with shaking hands, whispering Jesus' name in the darkness and wondering if he could hear me through the gold-plated ceiling. 15 nights of feeling like I was drowning. And then, the 16th night, he came. It was 3 a.m. March 29th, 2023. I remember because I'd been watching the clock on my phone, counting down the days until my wedding. 21 days left. 3 weeks. 504 hours until I'd be married to a man whose touch made my skin crawl, whose eyes were empty, whose 3 previous wives had all died under mysterious circumstances, natural causes, the official reports said, but everyone in the palace knew better. 21 days until my life was over. I couldn't sleep. I hadn't really slept in weeks. My room was dark except for the glow of the city through my windows, Riyadh at night, all glass towers and artificial light, a modern city built on ancient oppression. The air conditioning hummed. The silk sheets were cool against my skin. Everything was perfect. Everything was beautiful. And I had never felt more hopeless. I'd already prayed to Allah that night. Nothing. I'd already cried until there were no tears left. I'd already begged my mother to intervene. She'd looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language and said, "This is your duty, Amira. Stop being dramatic." I'd already considered running away, but where? I had no passport. No money of my own. No contacts outside the palace. The guards watched everything. My phone was monitored. Even if I made it to the palace gates, I'd be dragged back within hours. And then the punishment would be worse than marriage. I was trapped. Completely. Absolutely. There was no way out except death or obedience. I sat up in bed, that obscenely expensive bed with silk sheets and pearl-stitched pillows, worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. I pulled my knees to my chest, wrapped my arms around them, and stared at the wall. And I whispered, Jesus. Just his name. That's all I had. I didn't know how to pray to him, not really. I'd spent my whole life praying in Arabic, reciting memorized verses, performing prescribed rituals. But Christian prayer? I'd read about it in the Bible, people just talking to God. Like he was a person. Like he was there. No formulas. No special positions. Just conversation. It felt too simple. Too personal. Too intimate. But I had nothing else left. Jesus, I said again, louder this time. My voice cracked. I don't know if you can hear me. I don't know if I'm doing this right. I don't even know if I'm allowed to talk to you. I'm not Christian. I haven't been baptized. I don't go to church. I don't know the prayers. I stopped. Took a breath. Tried again. But the Bible says you came to seek and save the lost. And I'm lost, Jesus. I'm so lost. I'm drowning in this palace. I'm suffocating in this life. And I don't know what to do. My father won't listen. My mother won't help. Allah won't answer. And in 3 weeks, I'm going to be married to a man I don't love, and I think he's going to kill me. Just like his other wives. Tears started falling again. I thought I'd run out. I was wrong. I've read about you every night for 3 months. I've read about how you healed people. How you loved people everyone else rejected. How you died for people who didn't deserve it. And I need you to know, I don't deserve your help. I know that. I'm royal. I'm rich. I've lived in luxury while people starved. I'd been Muslim my whole life, and I was taught you're not God, and maybe I'm going to hell just for praying to you right now. My voice broke completely. I buried my face in my hands. But I don't care anymore. I don't care if it's wrong. I don't care if I'm blaspheming. I just need someone to hear me. I need someone to help me. Please, Jesus. Please. If you're real, if any of this is real, I need you now. The room was silent. I waited. 5 seconds. 10. 30. Nothing. I laughed, bitter, broken. Of course. Why would Jesus answer me? I was Muslim. I was the daughter of a king who persecuted Christians. I was guilty by blood, by birth, by association. Why would he? And then the air changed. I don't know how else to describe it. The air in my room, the temperature, the density, the feel of it, changed. It became thick. Heavy. Alive. Like the atmosphere before a thunderstorm, electric and expectant, but without the danger. With the opposite of danger. With safety. The hair on my arms stood up. My breath caught in my throat. And the room filled with light. Not from my lamp. Not from the windows. Not from any physical source I could identify. Just light. Soft. Warm. Golden. The kind of light that doesn't hurt your eyes even when you stare directly at it. The kind of light that feels like it's coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. I looked up. And he was there. Jesus was standing next to my window. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not being poetic. I'm not having a metaphorical moment. He was there. Physically. Visibly. As real as the bed I was sitting on, as solid as the walls around me. He was about 6 feet tall, maybe a little taller. Middle Eastern features, olive skin, dark hair, dark beard. He wore simple clothes, a cream-colored robe, woven fabric, nothing fancy. Nothing royal. He looked like a carpenter. Like a traveler. Like a man who'd worked with his hands and walked dusty roads and knew what it meant to be tired. But his eyes. I can't describe his eyes. They were brown, but not just brown. They held everything. Galaxies. Eternities. Every moment that ever was and ever would be. When he looked at me, when his eyes met mine, I felt like he was seeing all of me. Not Princess Amira. Not the girl in the silk abaya. Not the royal title or the palace or the wealth. Me. The real me. The broken, terrified, desperate me I'd been hiding my entire life. And he didn't look away. He didn't flinch. He didn't judge. He didn't condemn. He smiled. Amira, he said. His voice, God, his voice, it wasn't loud, but it filled the entire room. It filled me. It resonated in my chest, in my bones, in places I didn't have names for. It was the voice I'd been waiting my whole life to hear. The voice that felt like home. Not princess. Not your highness. Just my name. My name. I couldn't move. Couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. I just stared at him, tears streaming down my face, my whole body shaking. You called for me, Jesus said. He took a step closer. Not threatening. Gentle. Like approaching a wounded animal. And here I am. You're real, I choked out. It was the stupidest thing I could have said. But it was all my brain could process. I'm real, he said. And he smiled again, patient, kind, delighted. Like he was genuinely happy I'd noticed. I've always been real, Habibti. I've been waiting for you to call my name. Habibti. My beloved. The word my father used to use before he became a stranger. The word that meant treasured. Cherished. I broke. I slid off the bed onto my knees, not in Islamic prayer position, just collapse, and sobbed. Huge, gasping sobs that shook my whole body. All the grief, all the terror, all the loneliness of 24 years came pouring out of me like a wound finally lanced. And Jesus knelt down beside me. The King of Kings. The Creator of the universe. The God I'd been taught to deny. He knelt on my Persian rug, the one worth $250,000, the one I'd cried on and prayed on and bled on, and he put his hand on my shoulder. His touch was warm. Solid. Real. I could feel the calluses on his palm, carpenter's hands. Working hands. Hands that had built tables and touched lepers and been nailed to a cross. Amira, he said softly. Look at me. I lifted my head. His face was inches from mine. I could see the lines around his eyes. He'd lived, he'd suffered, he'd known pain. This wasn't some distant, untouchable deity. This was God who had become human. Who had felt hunger and thirst and exhaustion and betrayal. Who understood. I see you, Jesus said. I've always seen you. Every tear you've cried in this room. Every prayer you whispered to a God who felt far away. Every night you read my words by flashlight, terrified someone would find out. I was there for all of it. I've been with you since before you were born. But I'm Muslim, I stammered. I'm supposed to reject you. I'm supposed to say you're just a prophet. I've sinned against you my whole life. Amira. His voice was firm but not harsh. I didn't come for the righteous. I came for sinners. I didn't come for people who have it all together. I came for the broken. And you, he touched my face, wiping away tears with his thumb. You are exactly who I came to save. I don't deserve, I started. No one does, he interrupted. That's the point. Salvation isn't about what you deserve. It's about what I give. Freely. Completely. Do you think I died on a cross because people earned it? I died because they needed it. Because you needed it. I stared at him. At this man God kneeling on my floor in the middle of the night in a palace in Riyadh, speaking to a Muslim princess like she mattered. Why? I whispered. Why me? I'm nobody. I'm just. You're my daughter, Jesus said. And his eyes held mine with such intensity one thought I'd shatter. You're not just a princess. You're royalty in my kingdom. And I don't abandon my children. Not ever. Not even when they're about to be married off to a man who will hurt them. My breath hitched. You know about. I know everything. His expression darkened, not with anger at me, but anger for me. I know what your father has planned. I know what Prince Rashid is. I know the fear that's been eating you alive for 15 days. And I'm telling you right now, that is not your future. But I can't, there's no way out. Amira. He took both my hands in his. Do you know who I am? You're Jesus. I stumbled over the words. The Son of God? I'm the Son of God, he confirmed. And I'm God. Fully God and fully man. I spoke the universe into existence. I hold every star in place. I calm storms with a word. I raise the dead. I break chains. He squeezed my hands gently. Do you really think a royal decree can stop me? Do you think palace walls can keep me out? Do you think your father's power is greater than mine? I shook my head, mute. I've walked through fire with my children and they didn't burn. I've shut the mouths of lions. I've parted seas. I've overthrown empires. And I can save you from this marriage, from this palace, from this entire kingdom, if you trust me. I want to, I whispered. I want to trust you. But I'm terrified. I know. His smile was sad but understanding. Fear is natural. But faith isn't the absence of fear, Habibti. Faith is trusting me in spite of the fear. He stood up, pulling me gently to my feet. We stood facing each other, Jesus, the God-man who'd conquered death, and me, the princess who couldn't conquer a single day. I'm going to ask you a question, Jesus said. And I need you to answer honestly. Not what you think I want to hear. Not what you've been taught to say. The truth. I nodded. Do you believe I am who I say I am? Do you believe I am God? Do you believe I died for your sins and rose from the dead? Do you believe I can save you, not just from this marriage, but from eternal death? My heart was pounding. This was it. The line. The point of no return. If I said yes, if I confessed Jesus as God, I was committing apostasy. I was betraying Islam. I was shaming my family. I was signing my own death warrant. But if I said no, if I walked away from this moment, from this man standing in my room radiating light and love, I would be walking away from the only truth I'd ever encountered. I looked into his eyes. Those endless, fathomless, loving eyes. And I said, yes. Yes, I said again, stronger. I believe you're God. I believe you died for me. I believe you rose from the dead. I believe you can save me. I believe, my voice broke. I believe you're the only one who can save me. Jesus' face transformed. The smile that spread across his face was like the sun rising over the desert, blinding, beautiful, impossible to look away from. Then you are mine, he said. And I am yours. And nothing, nothing, can separate you from my love. Not your father. Not this palace. Not Prince Rashid. Not even death. You are mine, Amira. Sealed. Saved. Forever. He pulled me into his arms. And I, Princess Amira bint Abdulaziz Al Saud, daughter of a king, descendant of warriors and conquerors, collapsed into the embrace of the real king and wept like a child. His arms were strong. Safe. I could feel his heartbeat, steady, unshakable. I could smell something like cedar and earth and rain in the desert. And for the first time in my entire life, I felt home. What do I do now? I whispered into his shoulder. You follow me, Jesus said simply. One step at a time. I'll show you the way. I'll give you the words. I'll provide the escape. You just have to trust me. Can you do that? I pulled back, looked up at him. Even if it costs me everything? Especially if it costs you everything, he said. Because what I'm giving you is worth infinitely more. I thought about the palace. The wealth. The title. The family. Everything I'd ever known. And I thought about 24 years of emptiness. Of praying to a God who never answered. Of trying to earn a salvation I could never achieve. Of living in a golden cage and dying slowly inside it. It's yours, I said. All of it. My life. My future. My everything. It's yours, Jesus. He smiled again. I know. I bought it with my blood. And I will never let you go. The light in the room began to fade. Not disappearing, just receding. Jesus took a step back, but his eyes never left mine. You're going to face your father soon, he said. He's going to give you a choice, renounce me or die. And you're going to have to choose. But Amira, his voice was fierce now, commanding. I will be with you. In that throne room. In that moment. You won't be alone. And when you speak my name, I will move heaven and earth to protect you. Do you understand? I understand, I said. And somehow, impossibly, I meant it. Good. Jesus reached out, touched my forehead gently. You're going to sleep now. Real sleep. Peaceful sleep. And when you wake up, you'll be ready. I felt a wave of exhaustion wash over me, but not the desperate, anxious exhaustion I'd been living with. This was different. Calm. Restful. Jesus? I said as my eyes started to close. Will I see you again? Every day, he said. I live in you now. And one day, you'll see me face to face in my kingdom. A kingdom that makes this palace look like a prison cell. I smiled. Climbed into bed. The silk sheets felt different now, still expensive, still soft, but not important anymore. Just fabric. Just things. I love you, I whispered. And I heard his voice, warm and close, I loved you first. When I woke up 8 hours later, the sun was streaming through my windows. My room looked exactly the same, Italian marble, gold fixtures, designer everything. But I was completely different. And in 6 days, my father would discover just how different. The summons came on April 4th, 2023. 6 days after Jesus appeared in my room. 15 days before my scheduled wedding to Prince Rashid. The morning I'd been dreading and somehow, impossibly, preparing for. I was in the palace gardens when Minister Alotabi found me. It was 9 a.m., the only hour of the day when Riyadh wasn't completely unbearable. I was sitting on a marble bench near the fountain, a ridiculous thing, that fountain, imported from Italy, surrounded by roses that cost $300 each because they had to be flown in from Ecuador and kept alive in desert heat with a sprinkler system that used more water per day than most Saudi villages. I wasn't admiring the roses. I was praying. Not the Islamic way, not facing Mecca, not performing wudu, not reciting memorized verses. Just talking to Jesus. The way he'd taught me that night. The way I'd been doing every morning since. Jesus, I'm terrified. But you said you'd be with me. So I'm trusting you. Whatever happens today, whatever my father does, I'm yours. I'm not going back. I'm not pretending anymore. Give me the words. Give me the courage. Please. Princess Amira. Minister Alotabi's voice cut through my prayer like a blade. I looked up. His face was stone. His eyes were cold. His Majesty requires your presence in the throne room. Immediately. My heart stopped. Then started again, too fast. Why? I asked, even though I already knew. His Majesty does not explain himself to anyone. Especially not to disobedient daughters. He practically spat the last 2 words. So they knew. Somehow, they'd found out. Maybe they'd been monitoring my room after all. Maybe Aisha had been caught. Maybe someone had seen me reading the Bible, praying to Jesus, changing in ways I couldn't hide anymore. I stood up. My legs were shaking, but I forced them to hold me. Then let's go. The walk to the throne room felt different this time. Longer. Heavier. Like walking to my execution, which, I suppose, I was. But I wasn't alone. I know how that sounds. I know you're probably thinking I'm being dramatic, or metaphorical, or delusional. But I'm telling you, I wasn't alone. I could feel Jesus walking beside me. Not visible. Not physical. But present. More real than the guards flanking me. More solid than the marble under my feet. I am with you, I heard in my spirit. Do not be afraid. We passed the portrait gallery again. My ancestors staring down from their gilded frames. Kings. Conquerors. Men who'd built an empire on oil and blood and absolute power. I looked at them differently now. They weren't impressive anymore. They were just men. Mortal. Finite. Dead. And the God I served? He was eternal. Infinite. Alive. The throne room doors opened. The sound echoed like a gong. Inside, the scene was almost identical to 15 days ago. The massive hall. The vaulted ceilings. The chandelier with 15,000 crystals. The Persian rugs. My father on his throne, elevated, powerful, absolute. But this time, there were more people. The entire royal council was there, 12 men in crisp white thobes, standing in a semicircle around the throne. My brother Faisal, arms crossed, face unreadable. My uncle, the Minister of Defense, looking uncomfortable. The Grand Mufti, eyes narrowed, fingers steepled. Prince Rashid, my supposed future husband, standing off to the side with a snake's smile. And in the center of the room, on a table draped in red velvet, was my Bible. The small black leather book I'd been hiding for 3 months. The book Aisha had smuggled to me. The book that had changed everything. Sitting there like evidence at a trial. My stomach dropped. My hands went cold. But I kept walking. 1 foot in front of the other. Until I stood 10 feet from my father's throne, facing him. His eyes were black ice. His expression was controlled, calm, the kind of calm that comes before violence. "Do you know what that is?" he asked, gesturing to the Bible without looking at it. "Yes," I said. My voice was steadier than I expected. "Do you know what it means to possess such a book in this kingdom?" "Yes." "Then you understand the severity of what you've done." It wasn't a question. But I answered anyway. "I understand what you think I've done. But I don't think it's wrong to seek truth." A murmur rippled through the council. My brother's eyes widened. The Grand Mufti bristled. My father didn't move. Didn't blink. "Truth," he repeated, his voice soft, deadly. "And what truth have you found in that corrupted book, Amira?" This was it. The moment. The cliff's edge. I could lie. I could backtrack. I could say it was curiosity, that I didn't believe it, that I was still a faithful Muslim. I could save my life. But I'd lose my soul. I looked at my father, this king, this man who'd given me life and was now ready to take it away, and I said, "I found Jesus." Silence. Absolute. Suffocating. Then chaos. "Apostasy," the Grand Mufti shouted, stepping forward. "She has committed apostasy. The punishment is death." "She has shamed the crown," my uncle added, his voice shaking with rage. "She has betrayed her faith, her family, her kingdom." Prince Rashid looked murderous. I will not marry a kafir. An infidel. She is filth. My brother said nothing. Just stared at me like I was a stranger. My father raised one hand. Instantly, the room fell silent. That's power. That's absolute authority. One gesture and 12 men stopped breathing. He stood from his throne slowly, deliberately. Descended the steps. Walked toward me. Each footfall echoed like a heartbeat. He stopped inches from my face. I could smell his cologne, oud and amber, $5,000 per bottle. I could see the veins in his temples, pulsing with controlled fury. Say that again, he whispered. I found Jesus, I repeated. Louder this time. And he's not just a prophet. He's God. He died for my sins. He rose from the dead. And he saved me. My father's hand moved so fast I didn't see it coming. The slap cracked across my face like a gunshot. My head snapped to the side. Pain exploded across my cheek. I tasted blood. I'd never been hit before. Not once in 24 years. Princesses weren't hit. We were too valuable. Too fragile. Not anymore. You dare, my father hissed. His composure was cracking now, fury bleeding through. You dare blaspheme in my presence? You dare dishonor this family? You dare commit shirk, associating partners with Allah, the worst sin in Islam? I turned back to face him, my cheek throbbing, blood on my lip. It's not shirk if it's true. He hit me again. Harder. I stumbled but didn't fall. Your Majesty, Minister Elotabi said carefully, perhaps we should discuss this privately. There is nothing to discuss, my father roared. The room shook with it. She has confessed apostasy in front of witnesses. The law is clear. Sharia is clear. She must renounce this heresy or face the consequences. He grabbed my arm, his grip like iron, and dragged me toward the center of the room. Threw me to my knees in front of the table where my Bible sat. Renounce it, he commanded. Now. I looked at the Bible. The worn leather cover. The pages I'd read by flashlight. The words that had given me hope when I had none. Whoever denies me before men, I will deny before my Father in heaven. Jesus' words. Matthew 10 verse 33. No, I said. My father's face went white, then red. What did you say? I said no. I looked up at him. I won't renounce Jesus. He's the only truth I've ever found. He's the only one who's ever loved me without conditions. And I'd rather die than deny him. The Grand Mufti stepped forward, his voice shaking with righteous fury. Then you will die. By the laws of Allah, by the authority of this kingdom, by the command of your king, you are sentenced to death for apostasy. My father pulled something from his robe. A dagger. Not the gold one from his desk, a different one. Older. Ceremonial. The blade was curved, inscribed with Quranic verses. An execution blade. I will give you one final chance, my father said, his voice breaking for the first time. Because you are my daughter. Because I held you as a baby. Because somewhere in you is the girl I raised. He held the dagger out toward me, handle first. Take this blade. Tear that Bible apart. Renounce this Jesus. And you will live. You will marry Prince Rashid. You will be forgiven. I looked at the dagger. At the Bible. At my father's face, twisted with anger and something that might have been grief. And I heard Jesus' voice in my spirit, "Now, Amira. Trust me." I stood up. Slowly. My legs were shaking but they held me. "I won't tear apart the Word of God," I said. "But I'll show you something." Before anyone could stop me, I picked up the Bible. Held it against my chest. "My father says this book is corrupted. That it's false. That it has no power." I looked around the room, at the council, at the mufti, at my brother, at Prince Rashid. But the God I serve, the God of this book, he is alive. And he is more powerful than any king, any kingdom, any threat you can make. "Enough," my father shouted. "Guards. Seize her." 2 royal guards stepped forward, rifles raised. And I did the only thing I could do. I prayed. Out loud. In front of everyone. "Jesus," I said, my voice ringing through the throne room. "You said you'd be with me. You said you'd protect me. So I'm asking you now, show them who you are. Show them your power. Let everyone in this room know that you are God." And then it happened. The air in the throne room changed. The same way it had changed in my bedroom 6 nights ago. Thick. Heavy. Electric. The guards froze mid-step. Their faces went pale. The chandelier above us began to sway, gently at first, then violently, even though there was no wind, no earthquake, nothing physical to explain it. The 15,000 crystals tinkled like bells. Like a warning. "What is this?" the Grand Mufti stammered, backing away. My father looked around, confusion replacing fury. "What?" And then the light came. Bright. Blinding. Pouring through the windows even though the curtains were drawn. Filling the entire room like liquid gold. Not natural light. Not sunlight. Supernatural light. The kind of light that makes you want to fall on your face because you know, you're in the presence of something holy. Someone screamed. I think it was Prince Rashid. And then, Jesus appeared. Not to me alone this time. To everyone. He stood between me and my father, facing the throne. The same simple robe. The same carpenter's hands. The same eyes that held galaxies. But now he was glowing, radiating light so intense I should have been blinded but somehow could still see perfectly. He looked at my father. And when he spoke, his voice filled the room like thunder and whispers at once, gentle and terrifying, loving and absolute. "Abdulaziz ibn Saud," Jesus said. "You call yourself a king. But you are standing before the King of Kings. You claim authority. But I hold all authority in heaven and on earth. You have threatened my daughter. And I am here to tell you, touch her again and you will answer to me." My father stumbled backward, his face ashen. The dagger fell from his hand, clattering on the marble. Jesus turned to the Grand Mufti. "You claim to speak for God. But you do not know him. You have made a religion of rules and forgotten the heart of the Father. You have burdened people with laws they cannot keep and offered them no grace, no mercy, no hope. You are whitewashed tombs, beautiful on the outside, dead on the inside." The Mufti collapsed to his knees, trembling. Jesus looked at the council, at Prince Rashid, at my brother. "Every one of you has conspired to destroy this woman because she found truth. But I am the truth. And the truth is this: I love her. I died for her. I rose for her. And she is mine. You cannot have her." He turned to me. His expression softened. The fierce authority melted into tenderness. "Amira," he said gently. "Are you ready to leave this place?" I nodded, tears streaming down my face. "Yes, Lord." "Then come." He held out his hand. I took it. His hand was warm. Solid. Real. And the moment my fingers touched his, I felt strength flood into me, not my own, his. Courage I didn't possess. Peace that made no logical sense. Jesus looked at my father one last time. She is leaving. You will not stop her. You will not pursue her. Because if you do, you will face judgment, not from earthly courts, but from me. And I promise you, Abdulaziz, you do not want that judgment. My father couldn't speak. Couldn't move. None of them could. They were frozen, not physically, but spiritually. Held in place by a power infinitely greater than royal authority. Jesus led me toward the throne room doors. They swung open by themselves, no guards, no hands, just open. Wait. My brother's voice. Faisal stepped forward, his face pale, his eyes wide. Amira, I stopped. Looked back at him. I believe you, Faisal whispered. I saw him. I saw, his voice broke. Is it true? Is he really God? Jesus looked at my brother with such compassion it made me ache. Yes, Faisal. I am God. And I am calling you, too. The door is open. Will you walk through it? Faisal looked at our father, still frozen, still silent. Then back at Jesus. Then at me. And slowly, shakily, he stepped forward. I will, he said. Jesus smiled. Then come. And my brother, Prince Faisal ibn Abdulaziz Al Saud, heir to the throne, pride of the royal family, took Jesus's other hand. We walked out of that throne room together. Jesus, me, and my brother. The guards in the hallways parted like water. Servants stared but didn't speak. We walked through the palace, past the portrait gallery, past the gold-leafed columns, past the Italian marble and the crystal chandeliers and the wealth that had been my prison for 24 years. We walked out the front doors. Into the courtyard. Into the blazing Riyadh sun. A car was waiting. I don't know where it came from. I don't know who sent it. But Jesus opened the door and said, "Get in. You're going to the American embassy. They're expecting you. Aisha is already there, she's been granted asylum. You will be, too. What about you?" I asked. "Are you coming with us?" Jesus touched my face gently. The same way he had that night in my room. "I'm always with you. You just won't always see me like this." But Amira, his eyes held mine. I kept my promise. I protected you. I made a way. Now you keep yours. Follow me. Tell your story. Let the world know that I am alive, I am real, and I save. I will, I promised. I swear I will. Good. He looked at Faisal. Take care of your sister. And seek me with your whole heart. I have plans for you, too. Faisal nodded, speechless. Jesus stepped back. The light around him grew brighter, brighter, until I had to close my eyes. When I opened them, he was gone. But his presence, his peace, remained. Faisal and I got into the car. The driver, a Pakistani man I'd never seen before, said nothing. Just drove. As we pulled away from the palace, I looked back one final time. At the gold dome. At the towering walls. At the prison I'd called home. And I felt nothing. No grief. No regret. No longing. Just freedom. Did that really just happen? Faisal whispered. Yes, I said. That really just happened. Jesus is God. Yes. We're apostates. Yes. We're going to lose everything. I looked at my brother, my accomplice in this impossible escape, my companion in this terrifying new journey, and I smiled. No, I said. We just gained everything. The American embassy was 43 minutes away. It felt like 43 hours. Faisal and I sat in the back of that car, a simple black sedan, nothing royal about it, and watched the city blur past the windows. Riyadh in the late morning. Modern skyscrapers next to ancient mosques. Luxury malls advertising Gucci and Prada, women in abayas walking next to Bentleys and Ferraris. Oil wealth and religious conservatism tangled together like a knot you couldn't untie. My city. My kingdom. My prison. I was leaving it. Maybe forever. The driver, the Pakistani man who still hadn't spoken, kept glancing in the rearview mirror. Not at us. At the road behind us. Checking. Watching. Are we being followed? I asked quietly. Not yet, he said. His voice was rough, accented. But we will be. As soon as your father recovers from whatever that was. Whatever that was. Jesus himself appearing in the throne room of the royal palace. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream. But I just sat there, numb, holding my brother's hand like I was 5 years old again. How do you know about the embassy? Faisal asked the driver. Who sent you? The driver's eyes met mine in the mirror. Aisha sent me. She's part of a network, underground believers, servants and workers who follow Jesus in secret. We help people escape. We've been planning this for weeks, princess, waiting for the right moment. We didn't expect your brother. He glanced at Faisal. But Jesus provides. Jesus provides. 3 words that should have sounded absurd coming from a stranger driving us through Riyadh. But they didn't. Because I'd seen it. I'd lived it. Jesus had provided an escape when there was no escape. He'd protected me when I should have been executed. He'd made a way when every door was locked. What's your name? I asked. Daniel, the driver said. A small smile. Ironic, I know. Like the prophet in the lion's den. But my parents didn't know I'd end up living out the name. Are you in danger? Faisal asked. For helping us? Daniel shrugged. We're all in danger, Your Highness. The moment we said yes to Jesus, we became targets. But we're also under his protection. And that's worth more than safety. 20 minutes into the drive, my phone rang. I'd forgotten I even had it. It was in my abaya pocket, the same black Valentino abaya I'd been wearing when I walked into the throne room. I pulled it out. The screen said, Mother. My hand shook. Don't answer it, Faisal said immediately. It's a trap. They'll track the GPS. It's already tracking, Daniel said from the front seat. Your phone has been monitored since you were 13, Princess. They know exactly where we are. They're probably assembling a response team right now. Then why haven't they stopped us? I asked. Daniel met my eyes in the mirror again. Because Jesus told them not to. You saw it. Your father couldn't move. Couldn't speak. He's still under the weight of what he saw. But that won't last forever. Men forget miracles the moment it's convenient. The phone kept ringing. My mother's name flashing on the screen like an accusation. I answered. Amira. My mother's voice was ice. Pure, cold fury. What have you done? I started. Do not call me that, she screamed. I'd never heard her scream before. Queens don't scream. You are not my daughter. My daughter is dead. My daughter would never betray her family, her faith, her blood. Each word was a knife. I pressed the phone against my ear, tears already falling. You have shamed us, my mother continued, her voice shaking. You have destroyed our honor. Do you understand what you've done? Do you understand the scandal, the humiliation, the consequences? Please listen. The entire council saw you commit apostasy. The Grand Mufti has issued a fatwa. You are marked, Amira. Do you know what that means? It means any Muslim who kills you is doing a service to Allah. It means there is a price on your head. It means you can run to the ends of the earth and someone will find you. My stomach twisted. A fatwa. A religious death sentence. Not just for my father, from the entire Islamic establishment. And your brother, my mother spat. Faisal. The heir. The crown prince. You've corrupted him. You've poisoned him with your heresy. His father will never forgive him. He has lost everything. Faisal closed his eyes. His jaw clenched. He didn't lose anything, I said, finding my voice. He found something. The truth. Jesus is. Do not speak that name, my mother shrieked. I will not hear it. You are dead to me, Amira. Dead. And when they find you, and they will find you, I will not mourn. I will celebrate. Because the daughter I loved is already gone. The line went dead. I sat there, staring at the phone in my hand. My mother's words echoing in my head. You are dead to me. Faisal put his arm around me. She doesn't mean it, he said quietly. She's angry. She's scared. Give her time. She means it, I said. My voice was hollow. You heard her. We're not her children anymore. We're apostates. Traitors. She'd rather see us dead than Christian. Then she's chosen her side, Faisal said. His voice was harder now. Bitter. And we've chosen ours. I looked at my brother, 27 years old, the crown prince, heir to a kingdom worth trillions, trained from birth to rule. He'd just walked away from all of it. For Jesus. For truth. For me. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm so sorry. You could have stayed. You could have had everything. I had nothing, Faisal interrupted. The throne? The wealth? The power? It was all empty, Amira. I just didn't realize it until I saw him. Jesus. Standing in that throne room like he owned it. And I understood, he does own it. He owns everything. Including me. And I'd rather serve him in poverty than serve Father in a palace. Tears blurred my vision. What are we going to do? We're going to survive, Faisal said. And we're going to follow Jesus. That's all we can do. Daniel cleared his throat from the front seat. We're 5 minutes from the embassy. I need you both to listen carefully. When we arrive, do not hesitate. Do not look back. Run to the gates. Tell the guards you're seeking asylum. They're expecting you, Aisha has already briefed them. But there will be a small window. Saudi authorities can't enter the embassy, but they can surround it. They can make demands. They can apply pressure. You need to get inside fast. What about you? I asked. What will you do? Daniel smiled sadly. I'll disappear. Back into the city. Back into the shadows. There are others like me, believers who stay, who serve, who wait for opportunities like this. We're the underground church, princess. And we're not going anywhere. The American embassy appeared ahead, a fortified compound surrounded by walls, gates, security checkpoints. The American flag flying above it. A piece of foreign soil in the middle of Riyadh. Freedom. 30 seconds away. Daniel pulled up to the outer gate. Armed guards immediately approached, hands on weapons. Go, Daniel said. Now. Faisal and I scrambled out of the car. I was still wearing my abaya. Faisal was still in his thobe. We looked like exactly what we were, Saudi royals fleeing for our lives. We're seeking asylum. I shouted at the guards in English. My name is Princess Amira bint Abdulaziz Al Saud. This is Prince Faisal. We've converted to Christianity and our lives are in danger. Please. The guards exchanged glances. One of them spoke into a radio. 10 seconds passed. 20. I could hear cars in the distance, sirens, maybe. Coming closer. Let them in, a voice crackled over the radio. The gates swung open. Inside the embassy compound, we were rushed into a building by U.S. Marines, young men with crew cuts and rifles, professional and efficient. They led us through hallways, past offices, into a secure room with no windows. A woman was waiting there. Aisha. My maid. My friend. The woman who'd smuggled me a Bible and changed my life. She looked different here. Not subservient. Not invisible. Free. Princess, she said, and then she smiled. No. Not princess anymore. Sister. I ran to her. Hugged her. Sobbed into her shoulder while she stroked my hair and whispered prayers in Urdu and Arabic and English, all mixed together. You made it, Aisha said. Jesus brought you out. I knew he would. I prayed for you every single day. How long have you been here? I asked. 3 days, Aisha said. They found the Bible in your room. They interrogated all the servants. I knew they'd trace it back to me eventually, so I ran. Daniel helped me. And the embassy took me in. I've been granted asylum. I'm going to America, Amira. America. Can you believe it? I couldn't. I could barely process any of this. 2 hours ago I was kneeling in a throne room facing execution. Now I was in the American embassy. Seeking asylum. A refugee. A Christian refugee. What happens now? Faisal asked. He was standing near the door, looking shell-shocked. A man in a suit entered the room, American, mid-50s, gray hair, tired eyes. I'm Deputy Chief of Mission Robert Caldwell, he said. And you two just created the biggest diplomatic incident of the decade. Caldwell explained the situation quickly, efficiently, like a man used to crises. We'd been granted temporary asylum, but it was complicated. Extremely complicated. We were members of the Saudi royal family. My father was the king. Faisal was the crown prince, or had been, until an hour ago. Our defections weren't just personal. They were political. Saudi Arabia is one of our most important allies in the region, Caldwell said. Oil. Military bases. Counter-terrorism. Your father has leverage. A lot of it. And he's going to use it. He's going to demand we turn you over. He's going to threaten diplomatic consequences. He's going to make this as difficult as possible. Will you give us back? I asked. My voice was small. No, Caldwell said firmly. You've requested asylum on religious grounds. Under U.S. law, we're obligated to process that request. And given the credible threat to your lives, the fatwa, the apostasy charges, you'll almost certainly be approved. But it's going to take time. Weeks. Maybe months. And during that time, you'll have to stay here. In the embassy. Under protection. We're prisoners again, Faisal said bitterly. You're safe, Caldwell corrected. There's a difference.